This is unrelated to management of databases, directly unrelated. So I think we should start recording and start our agenda for the day. And hopefully, Jakub, this helps. And if you will have any extra questions, as usually, I would recommend you to stay and we can have further discussion on this topic. So, what is our agenda for today? Um, Today is going to be maybe a little bit shorter than usual. We only have the integration topic left for today. We are on schedule, so it's perfect. And also at the end of today, we will discuss fast track certification and how to prepare for it, how to register for it, how to obtain Creatio certificate um, as soon as possible. But first, regarding the integration. So we will talk about what options we have, OData, data service, and then we will talk calling web services from Creatio. But to set up a scenery, I would like to make a brief reminder regarding the integration because we already have partial integration. So now this environment of mine hosts a service, a RESTful service that is callable from third-party application. We used Postman for that. As long as a request to this web service is authorized, it is allowed. And here we are using select class that allows us to interact directly with database, but it is not because we want to access data from Creatio from third-party application, but rather to do something about it. So we've built a query and then what did we do? We maxed. We maxed the price. So this is an example of a service hosted by Creatio. But usually, when you're talking about integrations, this is more about the data exchange. So technically, we could still use a web service and instantiate this class, build a query, but this is overdoing it. We only need this service, again, this is a dummy service, to do something about the data and return. We call this from Creatio client side. We call this from third-party application in order to manipulate data. But if you want direct access, there is no need to build anything complex. What you should do is to employ what Creatio tools already have in place. So, what are our integration options? Custom web service is exactly what we've done previously with Builder service. We used forms authentication. There is an option to call this anonymously, edge case that we do not recommend. And all these options that only say forms, this is a bit outdated. Uh, oh, I'm sorry. This is a bit outdated. We've already discussed. Um, so evidently, since recently, um, OAuth is no longer a feature that needs activation, but is a a something that is available by default. So probably this article simply lacks an update. Probably soon will be updated. So forms, comma, allows for all these options. So custom web service we already built. We used it to access data, ignoring entities access rights, and we ran a function against the data in the service itself using some C# um, expressions. Another thing that uh, we're not covering in this course, but this, Jakob, is close also to some of the questions you have. You can call Creatio business process externally. So you can run process engine. Article starts with running business process from front end. We don't need this really. This was important back in the classic UI days, maybe, but now we've seen how simple it is to trigger a business process with an action button. So there is no need to use, I don't think that there is a need to use, oh, sorry, no. Here is our, mm, no. What is our we will build a process today. But essentially, it's so simple to run a business process that we don't really need this option. We will actually build one today. But you can run business process from backend and you can use third-party applications to call a business process immediately. So you see here um, some class that has an execute method. It employs an interface. It has an executes with some overloads, and you will see how to initiate a business process, sending sending arguments for process parameters and obtaining some feedback. So essentially, Creatio could be simply a platform that you only use for visual automations of business processes. But Creatio is more than that. So, but that is an option. So you can use, so you can, yeah. So you can use an integration to initiate a Creatio business process. Usually that business process is not just Creatio hosting some automation, but you initiate something in Creatio that affects data managed by Creatio, but technically you could trigger a business process that would do something, return with no changes to Creatio managed data. And also two options for authentication, also developed by Creatio. So this option we've already done. This option we're not going to cover. It's more on an advanced level, but more importantly, it's not really that often that we do this. Usually integration means that we are working with data and we need to run CRUD, create, read, update, delete uh, data operations. And we have two options here. OData is technology developed by Microsoft, used universally, even outside of the as far as I know, even outside of the family of products by Microsoft, as long as you have the necessary components. So the developer is Microsoft, and this is what we recommend for CRUD integrations. But we also have a data service which is developed by Creatio, much harder to execute. So OData is a recommended approach, but we will see the difference. So OData operation. Um, the Options are, if we go to day 10, as usually there are some links, and we have a documenter here. So we have some articles on Creatio Academy website also that are useful for starters. So we can get here, OData Basics, Overview, and you will see two protocols supported, OData 3 and OData 4. OData 3 is a legacy item. Hopefully you will never have to interact with it. It was meant for classic UI, so it's a little bit outdated. Still supported though, but unless you will be involved in a really, really old project that has a long history of migration, you won't ever have to interact with it. There are a lot of limitations to OData 3. First, most important, OData 3 will not work for entities that are in packages compiled as separate assembly, which is a super important. We have already discussed few um, items that are obsolete. This is also going to be an obsolete because compile into separate assembly is a very important feature. And if we want to use it, OData 3 is no longer available to us. More importantly, on the technical side, though, OData 3 has its own limitations. It has over 90 seconds um, it needs over 90 seconds to initialize, so which is extensive. And if you're using this somehow to be represented immediately on the client, this is not a great thing. Of course, you only initialize once, further communication comes faster. So instead, we're using OData 4 protocol. Um, and let's give this a try. So how do we build such requests? The link that I've shared in the links will offer you this documentation, and we are interested in OData 4 documentation. In order to run CRUD operations, OData 4, unlike data service, runs different types. Those are get to read data, um, post to create data, patch to update data, and delete to delete. So we will try all, and if we go through these links, we will have some examples. So we have an example of how to read a collection of instances. So we see this 0 that is only necessary for .NET Framework IIS because of the levels. Again, to remind you, we have the loader and core. Um, we have a root for loader. So, and then we have here uh, the actual application, which is also reflected in our app structure. So here is our loader in our app. This is only for IIS, just to be careful with this because I usually you will use the Creatio default infrastructure, which means that you will use Postgre database and IIS for application server, but keep in mind the differences. Okay, so back here, this is only necessary for IIS, then OData, and this collection one might look a little weird, but we should have an example. Hmm, this is an example. We already reading a specific record. We don't read a specific record. We want a collection first. And this should hint you that this is the name of the entity. Sorry, back to the name of the entity. So we can copy this and I will use browser first. I will need to change my request. So here's, I'm sorry, I will be interrupted 2 times today. System administrators will affect this, but we will need to undo some updates. So twice today I will be interrupted. Unfortunately, antivirus has hard time updating. Oh, sorry. So I was building OData. OData, user, yacht. And I see the response. I'll use a pretty print, but I will see the collection with all items. So because again, this browser session is already authorized, I will get my ID, all actually items that are in my collection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So this is the collection that I read. But usually we don't do this. We don't run our integration requests like so. So we use something more specific request. So now I'm going to switch just to cement how this works to Postman. Sorry for this example. It's irrelevant to us. So type get in order to read data. And again, if I simply run this, I will not be allowed this because this is third-party application show, so I should not expect anything before my session is authorized, but we've been past that. So probably we will see a direct link here. No. Well, I should be able to check into my history in order to data. Authentication service. We've already did this. So hopefully this all makes perfect sense by now. Type post for authentication service. I'm running this for Y3Dev. Service modal, authentication service, login. We remember that there is a body to our request. The body is username and user password. I'm simply using history of my history in order to make this faster. So now we are running authentication service. Let's send this. Now we are authorized. So now let's give it a shot again. It's a get type. Oh, sorry. Body is an irrelevant here. So we can do this again. And we receive 200. Okay. And we receive the same collection, 5 items in our data. But this is not usually what we need. So let's select only the necessary columns. So how we do this? In our request, question mark, dollar sign. Um, and now this is all specified in this documentation. I will only run some examples by you, but everything that I will be showing is from these examples. So I want to select only certain columns, those being I want to see ID of a yacht, um, name of the yacht, um, 10 minutes for reboot, name of the yacht, and price of the yacht. And maybe created on, created on. ID, created on, name, and price. Perfect. Um, Now I will use another parameter, a my request parameter, where I will maybe only show top few. So that would be another and I don't need five. I want top two. One, two, three, four, five. I wonder. Let's give it another shot. We will also order by. Order by created on. And we'll use the descending order. One, two, three, four, five. Something is amiss here. So we can use documentation, but I think that we shouldn't waste any more time. Get a set number of collection instances, dollar top value. Hmm. Doesn't seem that oh, sorry. Yeah, didn't specify that this is a parameter. And, and, my bad, indeed. Yeah, so now we have two latest entries, and if we want the latest entry, this is how it would look. So this is how we usually build our OData select queries. So we have a number of request parameters here, and we are authorized. And because it's GET, we do not have to explicitly provide the BPM CSRF. But we remember that this is not the case with other types. So now we will do an insert, add object collection instance. Request simply states to which entity we're adding this. And then the body is specifying what are the column values. So let's do this. Type post. I'll copy this to post. Body. So we have username. We'll call this OData yacht. And the price is a decimal. So the price is going to be 10,000. And that's it. but we will have this forbidden feedback. This is because of the tokens. Again, if you will be trying this on your own in your cloud environments, you won't have this issue because of the uniqueness of how trial and demo environments are set. A real environment has cross-site forgery um, enabled by default. So this is why I need to get back to my get, go to my cookies, and obtain this token. Back to my post, headers, BPM, sorry, BPM CSRF and CRT for Creatio, uh, CSRF, same value. This duplication, I think, will soon go away. So we have feedback that an entry had been created. Let's refresh this. Here is our OData yacht. And another thing that we had a lot of validations in place in this yacht. Uh, and I can try to make some modifications to actually see them. So passenger count, ticket price, there also was validation regarding the price, but they're all client side. So using this OData for integration, we should not expect, obviously, that to work. But we also had some entity validation triggered by save event. Let me remind you, this is something that we've done on Friday. So we have this event handler in C# that reacts to on saving. So this is before update on or insert. So let's give it this shot. Update is patch, and we need to provide ID of the record that we want to modify, and our body is name and new value for the field that we want to update. So let's give it a try then. I will copy this into a new, or maybe I will change just this query just a little faster. So patch ID. ID is going to be this OData yacht. Yeah, I think I will be, I will barely be able to show this example, but okay, patch ID of the yacht. Body. Uh, we're going to modify username version 2, and we're going to use a new user price, and I will add some zeros. I think that I should react to maximum, not minimum here. So let's try to send this. And we have internal server error. This is because of the backend validation, where the very maximum price is 100,000 pounds. So let's make this 90, 1, 2, 3, and try again. Shows no content, but we can check. OData version 2, price per day, 90,000. So our patch worked. And sorry, I will be rebooted in 1 minute, less than in 1 minute. So we also have the delete, a very straightforward request, nobody, just the delete type and the ID of the record to delete. Very sorry for this. It's a Qualys issue. So I'll be back in 3, 4 minutes, maybe tops. I see that the host was um, reassigned. Okay, we're restoring. Just a moment. Okay, so this is the end of OData. I think this is pretty straightforward, and this is a recommended approach. In Creatio, though, as we are running calls from Creatio, um, it can be a little bit what data service? Data service. Yeah, sorry. Data services, integration options. Okay, so this was OData. Forms and OAuth, recommended approach to run cron. It's easy, it's fast. It still requires some time to initialize, even with the force protocol. Um, so it could take 50, up to 15 seconds, maybe at worst, to initialize. But then it runs obviously always immediately. It does require entities and it does require a special operation permissions. I was able to run this Postman request because under my operation permissions, the credentials that are used for authentication were supervisor's credentials. And there is a special operation access to OData. And supervisor, being a system administrator, has an operation permission to access OData. If you create a regular user credentials and try to use your OData, you won't be able to run such queries not because of the object permissions that still work with such queries. So it's not about access rights to entity, but the operation of running OData service that is restricting you. So make sure that that user is allowed to both the operation and the entity on the level that you need them to run such permissions. And this makes it very easy and safe to control. So if you have a user who doesn't have a delete operations permission for an entity, then running OData service with a delete type of request will not work. But so this is a recommended approach. There is an alternative how we can use a data, and there is a developed by Creatio service for data. I'm refreshing my yacht list. And so some data had been loaded here. A data that is a data for the list component. And right now it doesn't have anything. Maybe we can have some examples for aggregation. Oh yeah, we have yacht rentals with some data. So let's use this. Uh sorry, I've restricted this, so let's go to design time. In here, in design time, we will add a new column that will rely on yacht rentals object. One yacht has multiple rentals, so this is a one-to-many connection. Because of that, instead of list of rentals column, we have a list of functions. One of the yacht rental columns is total price for a specific rental, and we will use a sum of values. We'll call this rentals total in pounds. We will save this. And now remember that we disallowed adding new columns. So after we saved, I'm refreshing my browser tab and restoring to default settings in order. Why not? Let me try this again. I I rushed somewhere. Or maybe I did show how we shouldn't do this. Yeah, probably that is the case. Okay, yeah. So this is the reason why I don't like to use the operation override settings for all users, as you remember. Yeah, but evidently I've already showcased this, and this is now preventing me from showing this. So we have a mismatch. On one side, I disallowed myself from adding new columns. On the other side, I've shown how this work can work badly for you. So this prevents me from showing you an aggregation column. It would require me to go to JavaScript, change that property, but I think that we that would be a waste of time. We already discussed this. What I wanted to show is an aggregation column. And just an example that our queries can be much more complex than the simplistic CRUD operations that we've seen. Because what I was trying to achieve, showing an aggregation by connected entity column yacht rentals, so an aggregation that will put a sum to all these columns and shown here. So this is not something that you can simply do with OData. And when Creatio client runs request to application server, this is achieved through a different method. And we see here select query. And we are using data service. This potentially could be used for integration also. The problem here, though, so we have multiple queries. Some is system data, some is actual business data. In both scenario, we're using data service. And essentials are the same. So this is a service developed by Creatio for Creatio to work with Creatio data, because we have folders, pre-configured filters, aggregations. So OData is insufficient for that. Also, it initializes immediately. The problem with using this is though the complexity. If I view source here, I don't think that I will be able to run this query because I'm no, uh, I should be authorized. Uh, Body version 3, send. No, I'm unauthorized. So we can, maybe we should still use authentication. No, where you at? Oh, sorry. Service model, Y3dev. Sorry for the inconveniences caused by uh, update failures. But the problem with this service, so I can actually still use this now that I'm sorry, I need a get. So we won't be running this again. This is a waste of time, and I think we should concentrate more on the fast track certification. But I can run such queries I will fail now because I don't have the BPM CSRF token, but you already know how to obtain this. Data service is also always post type. So you don't need to run differently depending on the type. It's also post, but the structure is much more complex. So for this list query, if we look into the actual body, I'll beautify this. So we see over 100 lines um, of JSON text, and compare this to the already closed, and compare this to the much more simplistic examples that we had in here, right? So this is why it's much harder to construct such queries with data service, but it is still possible. Though if you're overdoing this, you really need a very good reason to use this, because the reason why we need this in Creatio is to work with this more complex operations with folders, with very complex filters, with aggregation columns. When you're talking integration, you usually don't need this, so OData should suffice. So this was data service. And now we're going to call a web service from business process. The example for mm, yeah, we're almost hour in, so maybe we should take a pause now because the next one is an extensive one. So I have 53 minutes on my clock. Let's take 15 as usually and get back to it at 08. Okay, give me a thumbs up. Thank you, John, Jakub, Katerina. Okay, let's get back to it in 15. So what did we do so far? We've hosted a service in Creatio that is now callable from third-party applications. We also discussed how we use data exchange services, Creatio Unique Data Service and Microsoft Uniform OData Service in order to exchange data. Now we will do something else. In Creatio, we want to call a third-party application. We want to run an API request, use an API in order to request to call a third-party application. We will use a web service, no code, low code, probably tool. We could still use the source code and maybe call um, a web service by a database event or introduce something to our client module and handle to initialize that call. But we've done these things already. So instead, we're going to use a regular service call. And as usually, there are multiple ways to add that. So we have, if we use configuration, we need to specify whether we are using the REST or SOAP service. SOAP is a little bit of an outdated protocol. To remind you, Creatio can only host RESTful services, but it can call both. So this is one of the way where we need to specify right here which one we're building. We can also, just to remind you, because this is important from the perspective of cooperation, we can use Application Hub. Our Yacht application has the integrations tab, so we can add web service from here. Or if we go to Studio Workplace, We also have this web services section, and I bet that there is also here. I didn't use it probably ever, but I bet that there is an option to run it from here. Yeah, web services integration setup. Yeah, same section as this. So we will create a new web service, REST service. And before we proceed, let's check the service that I have in mind, sorry. So we will use a service that, when called, provides a list of companies that are registered in certain country under address. We can specify telephone, city, state, and zip code. And it will return a collection of such business entities. And we will use this web service to update our account section. Likely, this service is very simple one. It doesn't require any cookies, any headers. It doesn't employ any sort of protections, keys. So we can use it. My request though would be, maybe if you will actually use this, maybe try to not overload this, because if we do, then probably they will be forced to introduce. This is European host service, but they might be able to force to employ some protection. So, unfortunately, because we have a body of request, so I cannot use browser, but likely we have our Postman available to us. So let's first try this service, test if it works. Obviously, we have plan B in case it doesn't. Uh, Let me check. Mm, I think it's post. Oh, we'll try get. Sorry, name by name. Yeah, by name. So here's a request. We have a collection of companies in Great Britain that have Tesla in their name. And we, in response body, we have a company name, actual name, location type, operating status, city, state, if there is one, zip code, country. So we have all this useful data that we can use to update our own database. So now we will call this same web service from Creatio. And first we will register this as a web service. So now I'm going to copy the web service address. We'll give it a proper name, DNB service. Whoa, sorry for this. Don't know how this happened. DNB service. Same for the code. By the way, the package that I can still change, but just to be on the safe side, a reminder, this is due to us changing system setting current system package. Because I'm running this from section, not from configuration, not from application hub. If we hadn't changed that system setting, it would by default be stored in custom package, as such isolated and not migrated. So if you didn't change, make sure to always check where do we make this change to. Okay, so code DNB service. Number of retries if we fail to call this once. Depending on the quality of the host, we can modify this. This is a free of charge, unprotected service. We should expect some troubles. Maybe we should try at least few times before giving up. Now, as I have um, entered the URL for the service that already included the method name. This method was parsed, not perfectly, but at least we have some items to it. In some web services, when we use all the parameters and the query in the HTTP itself, instead we would use the full query as we register a new service and everything would be parsed. Our service requires a body of the request, so this is not something that we can do. So first things first, request type is actually post. Name of the method, lookup info by name. Just to align with documentation. Well, there is not much documentation to follow here, but it's good hygiene to align the names so that everyone can follow into our footsteps. Code, companies by name. Method address, parsed. Complete address, parsed. Content type JSON. Request type post. Response timeout. How long do we wait in milliseconds? 5,000, 5 seconds should be enough for most of services. Now we have options. We can either add parameters, which means that we need to actually find the documentation on this service and manually add parameters like so. So we would name them, change their type. Regular type would be body parameter. We could use method address parameters if we have them in address. Query, which is also a standard in address parameter, and we have our headers and cookies. But instead, we're going to use a certain magic, because we have this magic wand over here, to quickly set up using an example from JSON. So we will parse our request parameter using an example in JSON. We've already tried this in Postman. And we want Creatio to parse it, then we can save this. And now we have all the request parameters. Perfect. We can actually we can change data types, but usually with such type of calls, it's safer or more universal to use a string of characters, and then on the application side, when necessary, where necessary, make the data type conversions. But essentially, we have our parameters, and now we can send test. This time, we're going to call this web service from Creatio. Before we proceed, though, we don't have any protection. If we would, which would be some key headers maybe, we can use a constant value to populate this key here. So every time we call this method, that key is provided. I, though, would recommend creating a system setting. Usually keys are more or less universal per service. They're not per method. And If we have a keeper service, that service can have a dozen of different methods, all employed in different scenarios, but we can rely on a system setting instead in the business process or over here. So uh, both in business process over here, if we had that, that would be a better approach. So now we have request parameters. We don't have response parameters. And now we're going to test. We can also use documentation to populate response parameters manually, but again, we will employ the magic wand. And so first we try to call our service. We confirm that yes, we are sure about these settings. So we save this. And now let's give it a try. Jaguar, country code, GP, Great Britain. Yeah, Great Britain. And let's send a request. Okay, so we have some Jaguar companies, quite a few of them, but essentially what we have here is a response. So now we can take that response, copy this response, and just like we did with request parameters, we can quickly set up from response example in JSON. Let's insert this response. And Creatio will properly parse all the parameters. Now, we will not use all of these, and this is also a standard procedure. Web service will be pre-configured to return everything that they can, but we only require some items. Now, we don't, we want company name, maybe registration number if we will have time, though we don't have actually an object column that I hoped for. Yeah, we have a city that the company is in. I think this is enough. City, yeah, city, okay. So company name, registration number, maybe for later, and city are the only three items that we want for our account update. And we can save this. Let me check. I was actually hoping for some confirmation. No confirmation. Okay, no problem. Okay, so we have a service and we know we can call this from Creatio. So now we still can use C# Go, but or end event handling, but we usually would want to make maintenance as easy as possible. So instead, we're going to create a process that will call this web service. We'll call this enrich accounts, maybe. Though, no, well, maybe I should invest more time to naming this. This usually stands for enriching an account data um, list. Still questionable, but I think enough. For example, user enrich accounts list is going to be code of this business process. So we will call this business process from button. Uh, we can actually such a process that is usually only allowed to system administrator. Maybe we want to only call this from this button, run process, and we can run some processes that are allowed as a quick processes by simple button. We can use this run action as long as process has at least one simple starter. Or if we select a process, we have also this run button. But as usually, we will simply add a button on a page to make it simpler. And so what we want to do with this business process? This business process Will require some user input. Sorry, I need to defer the update again. Um, so what do we need from this business process? This business process will call our web service, but our web service has some request parameters. It expects from user some data. Likely, this specific web service, there it is, doesn't have any mandatory fields. I think though, maybe primary name is mandatory. I never checked. But we will need from user some input. We want user to specify what company they are. Oh, probably I should have called it company search. This is a better option. But we want to ask user the company name and country code. So this requires user input. For user input, we will obviously use a pre-configured page user element. Page to open doesn't exist yet. So this is going to be a new Freedom UI page. Mini page, only 2 items to input. This is unnecessary. This is going to be centered. And title is going to be um, company details, company search details, something like this. And we will introduce new page parameters. So user will need to give us company name, code also company. And user will also have to give us country code. Maybe for the country code in real life scenario, I should probably consider a lookup for user selection so we don't have confusions. Uh, we can make them both required. We probably should make them both required so user cannot skip them. And we'll save this page. We can close this. Back to our business. Oh, I'm so sorry. A bit of a rush. I did this again. This is actually the first thing. When you do things proper, the very first thing is to give the proper names. Enrich account details meaning for title and code of the page. Package proper. Okay. We're making this re-registering this client module actually, making changes to schema. I will clear this value, refresh, and great thing that we have this loading option of the changes. And we have proper name of the code page. Perfect. User input or the name of the actual client module, depending on what you wish. Show page automatically, yes. And buttons to complete the page, both save and cancel. And here we should probably consider options. If user shows cancel, then We will have the dismiss termination. So this is going to be conditional flow. User clicked cancel. If user clicked OK, then we go this way. Well, we have save not OK, but this can be changed easily. Or, as we've discussed, better way still to switch default one of the flows to be the default flow. So all possible events are accounted for. So now that we have this user input, Roger that, Ekaterina. Thank you for letting me know. See you soon. Make sure to check recordings for the fast track certification instructions. So now that we have user input, we can use it in our web service, and we have the special call web service system action. Which service to call? Our DNB service. Method, we only have one method. And here we have some, none of them are marked as mandatory, but here we have some request parameters that we need to specify. So wait a moment, where is primary name? Yeah, this is what, so we have name and we have country code. So for primary name, we will use process parameter, process elements, user input, company name input is the primary name request parameter, country code, also process parameter, user input, country code, 2 letters, is the country code. Now we also need to consider our progress. If we go to this web service advanced settings, we will see that among parameters, we have a success parameter, meaning that calling this web service was a success. We will use this for our happy path. We will state that we only proceed if condition DNB service and double-click success. So this already is a true statement, right? We don't need to specify that it equals true. So we'll call this success. Otherwise, default flow, call failed. What else? We can further limit execution time in seconds. We allowed our web service 4 call attempts, 5,000 milliseconds each. So that actually will run even before the default 40 seconds, but we can either extend or make this default shorter. We can also run continuing errors, which we wouldn't, but we have our essentials from here. We know that the result of this web service is a collection of companies. So how do we process this collection? We have the sub-process call activity system element, which we use either for subroutines or to process collections. For subroutines, it's just a good practice to cut or chunk your complex business processes into smaller pieces using the reusable subroutines that you use in different business processes and different scenarios, so that we don't have a very complex structures. A process that is over 15 elements maybe should be optimized. Another application of its subprocess is to actually process collections. And there is a special mode when that is the case. So we will add this. Which process to run? We don't have a process. We will call this subprocess just as many times as the size of the collection. So if our collection is 15 records, this sub-process is going to be initiated 15 times, separate instance for every item from this collection. There is a special mode to it, but we will only see this after we have the subprocess in place. So which subprocess to run? We don't have one yet. We will register a new one. And we'll call this insert from enrich account code. Parameters that we will obtain. So what do we want from our web service? What does it return to us? We can check our web service settings, but I think that we've agreed to that we only need city and company name. And registration number, but unfortunately we don't yet have column to use that. So we only care for city and company name as of now, at least. So an instance of business process from its parent will obtain those two as arguments. And we will register them as global parameters to actually do the insert. So city. Oh, this is going to be, well, yeah, this is okay. This is okay. Let's start with company name. Uh, and before we proceed, let's check into our accounts. So an account doesn't have a city. Instead, it has addresses. But let me just to be on the safe side, make sure of this. Yes, account has an addresses. So we will going to do a complex insert, which is usually the case. You don't just add one entity. So if we enter an account, that account will have name. It could have more details that we simply ignored, but we also insert a city. We insert, we also add a city. A city is not a account column value. A city is a column value for one of the addresses of the account. So it means that we will add an account first, then an address to this account, and in that address, let's open an address, we need to also add a city, and the problem with that city is because actually the city is a lookup, and what we obtain is a string. So yeah, I think that I maybe make it a little bit complex that I've prepared for, but it should be absolutely okay. So first we obtain two strings. First is the account name. It's going to be an input obtained from parent. The second one is the city name text. Code city name. Also an input. We can build this process further, but first we want to save this and save, no, sorry. We want to save this, go back to parent, and we need to still finalize this. So insert from enrich account is the name. Insert from enriched account. Maybe, I think we have just enough time, but we will start a little bit simpler approach. We will only go with account name first, and then we will address a city. Just so that it makes more sense. So account name, process parameter, first attempt to call DNB service. This is why one is ended. And here is our company name. And now, because, sorry, I went a little bit too fast. Process parameter, company name. And as you can see, Creatio does read into the fact that this is actually collection. So when I double click on company name, we will see the settings change here because now Creatio understands that we are processing a collection and we have different execution modes. We have sequential and parallel. Parallel doesn't mean that they will run simultaneously. Parallel will mean that um, parallel will mean that we do not wait for previous instance of the business process to finish before run the next one. So it's still a sequence, but when it's sequential and we run 100 of business process instances, for every execution, we wait until previous execution reaches the termination state. With parallel, we don't. And with sequential, we can continue on errors, and we only supply account name. Now let's do the actual insert. So in this version, we only have account name. So that is going to be system action, add data, insert company. Object that we are adding to is account. Which column values we're setting. Name. And the name comes from our process parameter that we obtained from parent. We'll save child. Parent is already saved. Nothing to compile here. Accounts section. Freedom UI Designer. Where are we saving this? To yacht package, only because we've changed the current active package for Customer 360 application. Otherwise, we've seen system would generate something else. So first things first, I check if this is what I need. Perfect. The button is going to be add accounts action, run process, which process, enrich accounts list. And that's it. Maybe an icon, but just to make it more visual. Let's save this. Refresh our accounts page. Add accounts process. Company name. I don't want to create too many entries because we will have Jaguar. Okay, we've seen 15, I think. Let's try this. And we see live data update that our process is being processed. Oh, we probably should read into documentation properly because evidently the filter that is used is contains, and this one is even weirder. Scottish Newcastle Limited, probably somewhere in its full title word, not word, but string Jaguar is also there. So this is a moment for documentation. So we see that call works. Now let's jump into more complex task We also want to add a city back to our business process. City name text will now also be provided. Service, collection of cities over here. Let's save this. So now child obtains company name and city name text. So first we added a record. If we look into this record, we will see that among other things, we have the created record ID. Why is this important? This is important because our addresses, I manually added this column for demonstration purpose. Our address has a foreign key of the account to which this address belongs. So now that we inserted a new account, we can read into this ID so that we can add address to a proper account. So now we will add another data item. We will add to addresses, account address. We'll call this add city to address, add city to address. So first things first, account. To which account this new address is going to be bound? Process parameter, insert company, created record ID. Okay. Now city. How do we add a city? I cannot add some text value into what is a lookup because my lookup expects an ID. So here, if I try to add process parameters, I will not be able to add that city. That city is a text, and this column stores foreign ID of the cities lookup. We've seen that those cities before, that lookup before. So I wonder why it didn't load previously. I'm loving this, but probably something with my browser. But cities is a lookup, so it needs foreign ID of this value. So first, I need to obtain that ID. So I'm not ready to add that city yet. I'm going to read data and find the ID of the city that is matching. Which object to read data from? Object is called cities. Which city? City has a name, which is a text, and we will compare that with the city name text parameter obtained from parent. We'll call that obtain city ID. We only need ID, so from selected columns only, and we will extract ID of the city. Now that we have that ID, we can navigate back to our address insert, and here we can now go to process what? Obtain, sorry for this. So now we can go to our city, obtain city ID, double click on the ID. Let's save this. And there is one more touch. Maybe we'll not go through this practically because it requires some object modifications, but for the deduplication, if we're running such inserts, we don't want to limitlessly adding the same addresses over and over again. And another thing, what should happen, something that we did not account for, what should happen if in our database such a city doesn't exist? We probably want to add one, don't we? So that would require another flow. But let's delete all this. Professional financial consultations, Pearly, by name Jaguar. Very weird, but yeah, this does require reading documentation properly. Okay, so we've deleted all those accounts. We are going to, sorry, let me just make sure that I've saved this. I don't quite remember if I did. We will add accounts. Maybe we will try something new. Ferrari. I don't just want to be on the safer side with spelling. Yeah, Ferrari is correct answer. Okay, so company Ferrari in Italy. Let's save. And I expect ooh, we see how WebSocket is behaving weirdly because of the some cached data. So we would want to restart our application because we still have some Redis data, and this component is using some of the cache. So if you watched carefully, you've seen that some deleted records seemingly appeared, but then disappeared. Okay, so we have a lot of items with the same name, and we have for the first one, we have an address. Let's add a city here. So see, city is empty because this returned us something that doesn't exist in our city. But I hope for at least one Rome or something. We only have very few cities in our system. Mm. Not even one. Very unfortunate. But essentially, this is the only way. And again, what we did not account for, what happens if service returns a city name as text that we do not have in our system. Probably it's not Rome, Ferrari in some smaller cities, registered in some smaller cities. We can test this if you want, but I think that we should jump to certification. We can test this just returning collection as a we can run, by the way, service in here. Web services, DNB service. Uh, Primary name Ferrari, country code Italy, send request. Yeah, city of Ravenna, Toscana. Yeah, and so we simply don't have those cities. But let's maybe let's add one just to be on the safe side to make sure this all makes perfect sense. Cities. It's plural. Yeah, plural for cities. New city, name, Ravenna. Back to our accounts. Mm. We still expect some weird artifacts because of the Redis. And address. No lookups, unfortunately, so we still will have to do this. This we done before. Ferrari, Italy. Let's try and find our Ravenna. Hmm. There it is. The last one, obviously. So, so this is how we enter to the connected object, and now we have the city of Ravenna also filled in. Another thing that we should account for is, as of now, I've been deleted all these entries before running this web service. In real life scenario, this doesn't happen, does it? What we want to also obtain is some unique item, and what we have as available in our response. So we're not going to employ this, but we have a registration number, which is a unique company number. So what it means that I probably should also pass it into my subprocess. And before I decide to insert a new entry, what I really want to do is to first search data. I would want to find an account where maybe there is something like this. Registry number, no, nothing like number. So, but this would probably be the case for all of the applications that you will create. Your account would have some unique registration number of their company. Um, Code. Yeah, I think this is it. Code. Probably you will rename this in real life scenario, but then you would compare it to that registration number. And you only need maybe an ID. And we've done this before with previous example. If um, you can even count these, so not necessarily using the ID, you can use the calculate the number of records where code is. I will use a value here, but hopefully you understand that this is meant to be a registration parameter. And we say, well, if the result of this is if the result of this is that such a record exists, number of records, and is greater than zero or not equals zero, means this is an alternative way compared to GUID ID that we've done already, means that there is already a company with such registration number. So we will simply terminate. We will not going to insert company or city or anything. Okay, do hope this makes sense. This is the final topic for today. First of all, your home assignment. You don't have one, but I will recommend you to try and redo everything that I did today, which means running requests from your Postman for OData. Maybe you will also try data service. If you want to also run data service, sorry for this. If you want to also run data service, then make sure that you understand what the body of the request is. It's not a given. So we don't have update here. We have update here. So the select query, view source, and here is your actual request body that you need to send to run any data service query. I'd recommend running also OData and trying to recreate this web service call, maybe even adding some extra logic. So things that I've mentioned. Maybe you want to make sure that you are not creating duplicates or adding cities to your cities lookup if you don't have one. Now, finally, to the certification. So I am now adding your fast track certification assignment to day 10. If you open this assignment, you will see essentially a collection of some of the home assignments. What it means that if you've made all home assignments, then your fast track assignment is actually complete and ready to be evaluated. I will still recommend you to carefully reread the assignment because I know that some of you did try to follow online with me, and some of the examples that I've made were different comparing to fast track assignment. I think I warned you about this, but if you did this, then maybe you are missing some items or you are doing different things with your items. Validation is different, web service, oh, sorry, not web service. We're not implementing this web service call, but Creatio service is doing different things. So carefully read and make sure that your application does exactly this. Also, make sure that all items that you've created in your environment are properly bound. An important thing regarding the evaluation is that you will have to export this to a zip package and upload to some file storage that I will have access to and send it to certificationcreatio.com. I will only use that if we will run into the problems. I will be able to install this thus in my local environment and run some tests. Otherwise, if you have this all prepared, then you are half ready for certification. Certification consists of two parts, practical assignment evaluation and certification quiz, certification test. So practical assignment evaluation, unlike with fast track for no code creators, maybe you've passed that and that can be a little bit confusing now, because with no code, your assignment is evaluated offline. The development assignment is different because it is comparatively small. We've discussed proper binding, so it is very easy to migrate this assignment from one environment to others. So this is why you will have to defend your assignment, which means that we will have a live session, you and I will meet during the call. You will be sharing your screen, demonstrating your assignment, but you will not only demonstrate that this items works from user perspective. This is less important. The more important is when you will be opening the settings, the source code, and explain why this works or maybe how this works. Obviously, I will be asking questions to navigate you through the process. But something to keep in mind, you will be explaining the why and the how rather than simply demonstrating that this works. After we meet and I accept your practical assignment, you will proceed to the test, a quiz, which means that during our meeting, I will generate a link for you to access that test. Oh, by the way, I know this is important, so feel free to interrupt me at any time with any questions, because I'm going really quick, I think, considering that everything that I'm saying makes sense. But if you need any clarification, stop me at any moment. So we meet, you show me your assignment, I ask you questions. This takes up to half an hour tops, usually only so if we are running into some issues. If we have some major issues, I either take control if you have a client Zoom, or I take your package, the one that you've sent to certification, and install it locally and check what mistakes have been made. If the practical assignment is accepted, so um, there is no points evaluation type. So it's either accepted or it is not. If it is accepted, I generate a link for you so that you can pass a certification quiz. How do you prepare for the quiz? Well, first of all, you will have documentations. A lot of questions are related to the topics that we've discussed. They are formulated differently, but hopefully through this course, you've got some understanding. Some of the questions are not the items that we've discussed, though it doesn't mean that you need to go through all e-learning and try to learn everything. So what you want to do instead is to go to the certification tab, software developer tab. You don't need to register, so skip this. Instead, find self-assessment tests, and here is your test. Hit learn more. And you will open the quiz page. You start with some instruction, and then you proceed to the quiz test. First, you see that there is some timer in place. This is self-assessment that is meant for you to prepare for the quiz. It still employs the timer because your actual certification quiz will also have a timer. And so now you will have to answer the questions. If you see these boxes, it means that this is a multi-select questions. If you see the circles, means that only one answer is correct. And you keep answering these questions. And now you see I'm 7 of 7 of application architecture. SA means self-assessment. So now that I'm finished this block, I'm jumping to the next block, which is SQL experience, also uh, self-assessment. Keep in mind, though, that right now we still do allow returning to the previous block. There is unfortunately no common ground is how to do this. But I want to warn you that if you do this, you will reset the whole block. So some do require some request for this because they aren't sure they want to revisit block, but revisiting block, that meaning that you will reset this and you will sometimes even see some other questions in that same block. So this is a waste of time. Maybe we will change this so that you cannot do this in the first place, but please keep that in mind. Within a block though, there is no more previous button. Yeah, that was deprecated. Yeah, so be careful. I don't think that you should jump to a block unless it's a small block and you really and you just understood that you maybe answered something incorrectly. So now you keep answering these questions to prepare for the quiz. Now, the questions are not unlike no code, the questions are not the same library as the actual test. Oh, I see some inconsistencies. Some still have this, others don't. Well, we will need to address this to corresponding team. But this is not the same library of questions. Some of the questions are paraphrased. Some of the questions offer different wrong options. But essentially, if you can continuously and repeatedly pass the 70% threshold, with self-assessment, that you will do the same with the actual certification quiz. So my recommendation is obviously to aim higher. Just go through self-assessment quiz until you confidently score, and you are all prepped for the quiz. So to summarize, we will have the meeting. How to schedule, I will mention shortly. We have a meeting. During this meeting, you show me your practical assignment. I evaluate your assignment, and if you pass, I generate this link for the quiz for you. You are taking the quiz at your own time. You are not forced to take quiz immediately when I send you the link. Maybe you want to go through practical assignment evaluation sooner than later, and then maybe in a week to pass the quiz. That is definitely something that you can do, and that is up to you. Um, so you pass the quiz on your own. If you pass it, you will need to write me an email. Yuri, I have passed my quiz, because I will need to make sure that your result and your certificate is bound in Creatio system. And then I will confirm you that, yes, indeed, your certificate is bound and you're done with certification. Once you're certified, you obtain the certificate that you can share on LinkedIn that has an effect on how you can, what kind of questions you can ask to support team. And it is valid for 2 years. 2 years from now, you will need to go through recertification process, which we are now revisioning. More likely than not, 2 years from now, your certification will be quiz only, and the quiz will primarily consist of the changes, questions regarding the changes in the past 2 years. So more on the Creatio updates quiz. And if you pass it, you are then recertified. And so finally, how do we meet? Now I need you to first check this document. Make sure that you've done the same so that you know you don't need to make any changes. Once you do this, and also during your demonstration, I will need you to have Postman so that you actually run queries. But once you do this, you simply write me an email with a preferred date. And once you choose the date, you can still register using website, but that is registration for regular certification. If you want to use the fast track scenario, then you need to write me an email, date when you want me to evaluate your practical assignment, and then I will be able to offer you sometimes few slots, sometimes only one slot, and if it doesn't fit, then we can change the date. So I think we will manage, but I hope you understand this is a very dynamic thing because we have a lot of certifications, a lot of trainings. So the time ranges that I will be able to offer you are somewhat limited. But once we've chosen one, I'm sending you a Zoom invitation. We meet and go through certification procedure. Any questions so far? Okay. Yes, Mahabub.
Is there any like quarter time span for completing this?
Oh, thank you so much. I actually nearly missed this. Yes, we will have to meet up to February. Oh, sorry. Just give me a second. I will need to check this. Not sure. Yeah, so there is a deadline. Fast track means that this is fast for you. We still need to make the same checks and so on. So fast track has a certain um, philosophy in mind. It is fast track because you do this immediately after guided learning. And thus, if you want to use this option versus regular certification, you are limited in time, and our time limit is January 30th. So we will have to meet before January 30th. If you won't be able to do so, you will then simply go to Academy Certification and register for a regular certification. Regular certification, though, means that you will receive a different assignment, a longer one, and you will have to complete it from scratch. So more time investment is required. But yes, you are limited to January 30th. So when you write me an email with the date, that date should be up to January 30. Thank you, Mahabub. I nearly missed this. Any other questions? Okay, then. So